welcome to the Reading the Bible Together podcast. I'm your host, Angela Smith. Today is our first official episode. We are talking about Luke chapter 1, and my guest today is the person that sits right next to me in the office. My guest is Paul Perrault. He is Paul Perrault. I said that really fast. His name is Paul Perrault, and he's the producer of Mornings with Carmen LaBerge. Welcome, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Angie.
I'm just so excited. I'm talking too fast.
Okay, well, I get it. I'm a fast talker by nature. You know, I got it from my mom's side of the family.
So let's dive right in there,
Okay.
because there's a lot that happens in this chapter.
Yes, very much. When you get the angelic stuff happening, things kind of go quickly. So.
Wow. I mean,
Blur.
well, and I don't want to skip over to the right at the very beginning, Luke kind of setting the stage for what he's doing, that he's making an account of what Jesus did while he was here, and that he's writing to his friend Theophilus, who I'm not really sure who that is, but
Yeah, I don't know if anybody really does. All I know is it's cool to me. Luke is so explicit as to why he's writing it and to whom. He mentions Theophilus, and then why he's writing it. There's only one other gospel that really gives that clear indication of why it's being written. That's and it's toward the end of the book where John talks about, these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Well, yeah, Luke is dealing with the issue of, I think, anytime there's somebody as powerful, as big as Christ is, or at least in for us as Christians, there's going to be a lot of false stories that pop up. And if you ever really followed some of the apocryphal stories, because there's lots of things that were written down in the centuries following about Christ, and a lot of it's just, weird. But I guess that was a problem for Luke, too. And so he's basically helping his friend Theophilus. Okay, you're hearing all these stories. I want to give you an orderly account of what took place. And now Luke, not being an eyewitness, is trusting on eyewitnesses to build his account, which is kind of cool because he's kind of our first investigative reporter, if you wish.
Yes, that's exactly what I felt like it is, that he's an investigative reporter and I kind of love that he didn't have a firsthand account.
Right.
Because there were it would have been amazing to be one of the 12 or the women that were following Jesus and doing life with him. But, when you see what they saw, it can be impactful. Like they talk about a witness, there's something physiologically that happens in your body that sometimes you don't remember things necessarily exactly the way that they happen. So it's almost like Luke is removed a little bit to kind of get a bigger picture perspective.
Dispassionate look at it,
Yeah.
And that helped out. But I love the fact he makes some references to who he's talked to, especially, for example, because if you, in the first few chapters of Luke, a lot of this is based upon, I'm pretty certain, what Mary told him, because he talks about how Mary treasured these things in her heart. It's like, okay, she had time to think about all this stuff, what she experienced. So,
well, and I thought about that with how did, who was he talking to? You're probably exactly right that it was Mary, because how would he know otherwise what Mary sang, like her Magnificat?
Exactly. I'm kind of wondering, too, if he may have borrowed. I mean, okay, by the time Luke was writing his gospel, very likely Mark already existed. And Mark, he may have gotten that because that's John Mark. And Paul and John Mark and Luke were doing stuff together. So I don't know if he shared notes.
Right.
And, Matthew was around, too, by this time. And so it's like he had the opportunity to get from eyewitnesses. I mean, Mark is also, I think, nephew of Peter. And so he probably, Uncle Peter told him all the stories. So.
Well, okay, so that is why Luke is writing, and that is who he is writing to. What else was sticking out to you in this chapter?
Beforehand, we were talking about Zachariah and how he was looking for assurance. I mean, the next story there, or the next thing after the intro, is getting into the birth of John the Baptist, or the announcement, which was kind of weird. Right? I mean, Zachariah, he's considered blameless and a righteous man, and Elizabeth, a righteous woman, but they're barren. And
which is interesting because usually if they're barren, in that time, unfortunately, they thought it was because of some kind of sin. So it's interesting that Luke points that out.
That is very interesting. And obviously he's in God's eyes different, because this is, I think, a God's eye view of things. I mean, you're right. People would look at, oh, you're barren. Obviously.
Oh, what sin is in your life?
What sin is in your life? That's kind of the mentality they had then, that shame culture. But God does things a little differently. I'm kind of happy about that. Now, I'm sure, Zechariah and Elizabeth spent many, many years in prayer. God, give us a child, and it never happened. And then all of a sudden, many, many years later, as they're old, that, his lot came up to serve in the temple, to go into the inner court to do the burning of incense at the proper time, and people outside are praying. I mean, it's like, okay, God timed this out, because lots are in God's hands. Mm-hmm. And so he's in there, and all of a sudden, who appears to him? Gabriel, saying, hey, your prayers have been answered. You're going to have a son. And it's like, a little late, hey, Gabriel.
How can that be?
How can that be? A little late, Gabriel. Actually, okay, to me, there's a couple of things that really jump out at me, because Zechariah, he should have taken this as assurance. Being a priest, hopefully well steeped in the Old Testament, would at least know the story of Abraham and Sarah.
Right.
It's like, you mean you're going to do for me and Elizabeth what you did for Abraham and Sarah? That wasn't his response.
Okay, yes, you're right. That wasn't his response, but Abraham was a legend. I mean, that's how they. I mean, that's how they identified themselves as descendants of Abraham.
Exactly.
And I God was going to do. Thinking about it from Zechariah's point of view, God was going to do for him what he had done for Abraham, who he's a son of.
Exactly.
Like Abraham's a legend. Like what?
He's the big guy.
Yeah.
Father Abraham.
An angel. First of all, he's in. I can't remember if it was a Holy of Holies, but he's supposed to be in one of the inner places that I think they would even tie something to them in case something to happen to them while they're in there. They could pull the priest out. So he's in this once in a lifetime place. An angel appears and says that they're going to do the same thing that they did for this legend Abraham. Mm-hmm. That makes me understand a little bit more why he's like, what?
I'm a legend. It's interesting because, again, he was sent to answer. Gabriel was sent to answer, in part, the prayer. And Zechariah seems to blow it off as, how can that be? Instead of just a nod, really? Thank you? It's like, how can that be? Mm-hmm. There seems to be a dismissiveness. And it's sad to see. And yet, even in the midst of that, I'm still struck by, okay, he did have to deal with a little bit of a hand slap, or shall we say, mouth slap. He couldn't talk for 9 months plus until John was born. And yet, God said he was going to do it. God was going to answer the prayer. He did it, regardless of the heart of Zechariah in that situation there.
Whether or not he believed or
not. God says, this is what I'm going to do. I don't need your permission.
Well, and it's so interesting to think about the way that he responded versus, because then the next thing we see is Mary being visited. And she says that, whatever, all that you have said, let it be.
But she first, though, when the angel said, you're going to have a son, she asked the question, how can this be?
Happen? Yeah,
how can this be? Well, okay. Now, I can get Mary's situation here. There's a bit of a difference. I mean, a lot of people look at, well, they both questioned, but what was the heart behind it? Because I'll get to that in a moment. But Mary was asking, she had no scriptural precedent to really work on. Okay, there's this vague mention of a virgin will be with child, a prophecy. I don't know if they fully understood what that prophecy meant. I mean, there's so much that it's like, how's that going to be borne out? How is that going to be borne out? And yet for Mary, it's like, okay, I'm not married.
Right?
There's no scriptural precedent, unlike for Zechariah when it comes to Abraham and Sarah. So she's kind of, okay, how's this going to be? I mean, okay, God can do it. How?
Right.
And I think there's a bit of difference. Plus, it was, to me, you heard what Gabriel said to Zechariah, because of your unbelief. In that moment, and I don't want to say total unbelief, but in that situation, you're not trusting what God is promising you. That's one thing. But Elizabeth, you remember when Mary goes to see Elizabeth later on in the chapter, and John the Baptist sleeps in her womb, and then she talks about how you are blessed because you believe that the Lord would do what he said. Mary was questioning to help understand and believe more. Whereas I think Zechariah, I don't want to come across as overly judging him because we're all guilty of this kind of thing too, but I think he was dismissing, whereas Mary was just kind of, I believe you, how is going to happen type thing. So I love how, Luke puts it in his narrative, the different heart attitudes that Zechariah had in the situation as opposed to Mary in that situation.
Yeah, even though they're both asking a similar question, the motivation for it is different.
It is way different. Yeah. Way different.
And both are relatable.
Too relatable. That's the thing.
So good. So good. And so is there anything else in this chapter that really kind of jumps out at you?
Okay. We hear the term of Mary being blessed because Elizabeth mentions that in her greetings, and then Mary even brings it up in what's called the Magnificat, one of the three. I love the three songs you find in the early chapters of Luke. The Magnificat, you have Zechariah's prayer, and you have the prayer of Simeon, the Nunc Dimittis, now dismiss. I have seen the Messiah. Please give me, dismiss me. But Kashiv talks in the Magnificat, I will be called blessed. And here she is at the start of this journey of hers. Did she fully understand what that blessing would entail?
Right.
Yes, she got to be the mother of Messiah, which is a huge blessing. But I was struck by all that she went through in the gospel accounts that I would kind of go, that ain't no blessing. I mean, okay, the whole, you're going to be the Messiah's mom, but everybody's going to think you're a loose woman. And, I mean, Joseph even almost divorced her if it wasn't for an angel coming by and slapping up saying, no, this is God's doing. We're good here. There's that. There's when they travel to Bethlehem, no room in the inn, and people have been debating what that means. Long story short, they weren't accepted in their own family, possibly because of Mary. That's why Mary had to have Jesus where the cattle were. The whole issue of having to flee to Egypt because Herod was trying to kill baby Jesus. I mean, this is not exactly what I don't think she was saying, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. And yet it happened. And then watching your son die on a cross, a criminal's death, totally this is blessedness. And yet, yeah, it is in the bigger picture again. Sometimes you have to back up and see all that God is doing and all the tears, every tear you cry, God answers for in a big way. So
going through all of that suffering makes the resurrection that much more. I mean, you can't have Sunday without Friday.
Exactly.
And if you don't linger on Friday, Sunday's not going to have as much meaning as it does. And so I think you're exactly right that we expect blessing. It feels similar to me to saying that God is good.
Yeah.
When we say God is good, I think a lot of times, myself included, meant that to be feel good, and that's not always the case. Good is a bigger, broader, deeper meaning of a word, and I think you're right on blessing. That word blessing, being called blessed, may not always feel true.
No, and yet when you get a chance to step back and get the whole picture, things are a lot different. You do see the blessedness. And I look at Mary and what she went through. Look at even Zechariah, what he went through. Okay, he was silenced for a while, and yet you see in the next chapter. I hate doing all the spoilers here, but when his tongue is finally loosed after he says his name is John, which was a weird story in itself. But his response, his Zechariah's song, which is prophetic, it is beautiful, and he got it. It took a bit of a chastisement, but he got the blessing, and he got what was going on. So, yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for taking time to sit down and talk and start this whole thing off with me.
No problem.
With Luke chapter 1. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and we will see you next time with Luke chapter 2.
The Reading the Bible Together podcast is a production of Faith Radio and Northwestern Media. Hosted, produced, and edited by Angela Smith. If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, consider financially supporting Faith Radio. Find more information at myfaithradio.com.
On the latest episode of the Wow God Stories podcast, we go to Africa.
I was raised in Sierra Leone in a community that truly lived the phrase, "It takes a village."
Until one day, the world outside Anita's village broke in.
I didn't grow up in a war zone, but I watched one unfold in the country I love.
God brought hope to her story and many others through radical provision.
God began to direct us towards Uganda, Africa.
I was born and grew up in the countryside of Ethiopia.
Nanjan I met in Kigali, Rwanda.
Discover how God showed up in the middle of war, loss, and impossible odds in Africa. Stories that'll make you say,
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow God Stories, wherever you get your podcasts.